Counsel, I don't believe that anyone who served in Vietnam, who saw what happened as a consequence of our efforts, when in my opinion we won all the battles and then lost the war, could ever be unaffected by that unless they were totally insensitive. I would also point out that we didn't lose the war in Vietnam. We lost the war right here in this city.
Well, what North was saying there was that America's real enemies are inside this country. And that would explain why North spent so many years under Bush's auspices preparing contingency plans for rounding up large numbers of dissenters if we ever go into another war. Now, you'd have thought that the committee would have been outraged by North's sort of declaration of war with a large segment of the American people, but instead of their disagreeing with them, most of them actually agreed with him.
The fear of an enemy within is not new in American government. In 1942, amidst the hysteria following the bombing of Pearl Harbor, over 100,000 Americans of Japanese descent were rounded up and put into mass prison camps. They were accused of no crime, given no trial, but remained incarcerated for several years. This internment of Japanese Americans is thought by many to be one of the darkest moments in American history. But could it happen again?
Concomitant with this whole operation and Oliver North's involvement in it was a plan to suspend the United States Constitution, as they've referred to it, under a state of national emergency on the part of the president. Where that comes from is a specific program called Rex 84, Readiness Exercise, number 84, or for 1984. And it was undertaken under the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Now, this was a national executive branch agency that was originally set up at the very end of the Carter administration to do nothing more than to coordinate the national flood relief, hurricane relief, Red Cross stuff, things, to get the government programs all brought under one umbrella so they could coordinate them.
When Reagan was elected to the presidency, he installed Louis Giuffrida as head of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Giuffrida was an old, cold warrior from Reagan's California days whose specialty was suppression of unrest and dissent. Giuffrida, North, and George Bush began to turn FEMA into an instrument of domestic anti-terrorism.
You're dealing with a group of people in the Reagan administration who equated political dissent with treason, and who cannot differentiate between emergency procedures, which I think everyone agrees are necessary, and suppressing political dissent. And with North and Poindexter and Casey, you had a group of people who saw Americans who disagree with them as the enemy.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster? Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir?
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was,
may I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically, the only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military, and arrest Americans and hold them in detention camps.
If the president ordered a direct strike into Central America, which was to be codenamed Operation Night Train, we got the documents on it, that they would set up a concomitant domestic readiness exercise or war game scenario called Rex 84, the main rationale of which was to round up 400,000 undocumented Central American aliens within a 2-week period of time and incarcerate them in 10 military detention camps.
They rehearsed this, but of course if you were rehearsing the rounding up of 500 million aliens, you have also rehearsed the rounding up of 500,000 critics of the administration. It would be very, very wrong to think that these kind of illegal operations will stop just by Ollie North's disappearing, because the motives to generate these kind of agendas are still there. And the powers that were collected in his name, his office, as far as I know, they are still there.
In times of passion and in times of great fear, what to the eyes of the person and the mind of a person in time of relative peace and stability seem impossible, become very real, very logical, very possible.
One of the most threatening developments surrounding these revelations is the use of money raised through illegal activities to influence the American electoral process. There are growing indications that large amounts of offshore money are being funneled to conservative political action committees to mount campaigns against liberal congressmen up for re-election.
They have set themselves up as an independent government outside of our country's shores, operating out of private corporations with hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal. And they will not be told no. Not only they won't be told no by individual congressmen, because they will smash them politically. They've moved money into these PACs from offshore to help fund these campaigns against people who don't support their policies. We've come actually full circle, where these people over on the Hill are intimidated, that they're afraid of having a whole campaign launched against them in their congressional district.
Hey, you know, in the 70s, there was a congressman or two who really stood up to the CIA. There was Congressman Pike, who brought out a very, very critical report on what the CIA had been doing. And that man was destroyed. His report never even got to Congress. I mean, there was Senator Clark, for example, of the Clark Amendment, which stopped operations in Angola, prohibited the CIA from operating there. A lot of money came into his state in the next election. They said it was South African money. Who knows? And he was defeated. Senator Church, who led the overall critique of CIA operation, a lot of money came into his state of Idaho in the next election, and he was defeated. So congressmen can see who has the power and who has the money in these things, and every now and then one or two of them will stand up and oppose them, but they need an awful lot of encouragement from the people before they're going to take on such powerful enemies.
Additional witnesses have confirmed that the Reagan-Bush campaign made a deal to delay the release of American hostages. Although the identity of the individuals involved is in dispute, the fact that the secret meeting did take place has been corroborated by Gary Sick, the principal White House aide under President Jimmy Carter, by Mansour Farhang, Iran's ambassador to the United Nations during the hostage crisis, and by Richard Brennicky, a former CIA arms dealer. In 1989, the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee released a 150-page report confirming the extensive involvement of the CIA in drug trafficking. In July 1989, John Hull fled from Costa Rica to the United States. Days later,